Ladies and gentlemen, whoever's watching, my name is James PFP. This is the Banjocast. Be ready.
Come all you young fellows, and list while I tell of the terrible misfortune that upon me befell. Centralization, they say, was the name, but me, I just calls it the government game. My name, it don't matter, I'm not young anymore, but in all of my days, I'd never been poor. I'd lived the right good life, and not felt no shame, till they made me take part in the government game. My home was St. Karen's, a heavenly place. It thrived on the fishing of a good hearty race. But now it will never again be the same, since they made it a pawn in the government game. Sure, the government paid us for moving away and leaving our birthplace for a better day's pay. They said that our poor lives would ne'er be the same once we took part in the government game. It's not many years now since they all moved away to places more prosperous way down in the bay. There's not one soul left now, not one who remains. They've all become part of the government game. Now St. Karen's lies there all empty as hell, except for the graveyard where our dead parents dwell. The lives of their children are buried in shame. They lost out while playing the government game. To a place called Placentia, well, some of them went, and in finding a new home, their allowances spent. So for jobs they went looking, but they looked all in vain, for the roof had caved in on the government game.
Yeah, I can turn the audio back on for the mic.
It's surely a sad sight they're moving around, oh, wishing they still lived by the codfishing ground. But there's no going back now, there's nothing to gain, now that they've played in the government game. They tell me our young ones the benefits will see, but I don't believe it, oh, how can it be? They'll never know nothing but sorrow and shame, for their fathers were part of the government game. And when my soul leaves me for the heavens above, take me back to St. Karen's, the place that I love. And there on my gravestone, right next to my name,
this is the place I love.
Just say I died playing the government gave.
That's based on an older Irish song called The Patriot Game. And a Newfoundland poet changed the lyrics to suit it to here. And that's a song that was written and recorded, therefore, in the last 50 years. So, yeah. Before I get to anything else, I'm going to point out why it is I'm talking about this at all. And what I got here is an open instance of good old Facebook. There's a post here a buddy of mine posted. Newfoundland Brothers. I don't want to get into what was actually written on the page there, but I bloody well reacted to it because ignorance is ignorance is ignorance. But here we go. Let's have a look at the article. Newfoundland Brothers want a government apology for Smallwood era resettlement. I'll take the copy take a copy of the link, and I will post it over here in the description, video description, so you can see that there's one for CBC Newfoundland there. Once that's updated, now I'll read the story out for you. I should replace this window again, just to be careful. Content remains constant. I like how it tracks that. That's pretty cool. Newfoundland Brothers want a government apology for Smallwood era resettlement. Raymond and Hayward Blake say they'll explore a class action lawsuit if they're ignored. And a class action lawsuit would involve more people because it's about class action. Well, how many more people are we talking about, guys? Two brothers want the Prime Minister and the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador to apologize to people who resettled between the 1950s and 1970s as the government of the day tried to centralize its services. Raymond and Hayward Blake also want compensation. What? You know, I don't think they really understood what the people were actually going through, and there should be some recognition, perhaps, for the harm that was done to people, said Raymond Blake. Electric lights, flush toilets. So this is the article is trying to make them look as crazies, and people on Facebook were reacting in that manner. I think that's a little short-sighted and also fucking ignorant. Brothers started life in Push-Through on the south coast of Newfoundland. I'm going to show you where Push-Through is. I don't have to use Google Maps to do this. Maybe I do have to use Google Maps to do this. I'll use Google Maps for now. What the hell? As soon as I got this page loaded and whatnot, it's going to take a minute or two to load up here. This is the city that I'm resident in, St. John's, Newfoundland. The highest population density in the province exists in this area. Bleeds over a little bit to the south. You can see where some of the place names are on the map already. There's more population in this region basically than is in the rest of the island at present. The brothers were resettled to Hermitage right here. Here's Push-Through. It's the name of this little gap between the islands, between this part and the island offshore, or over here. Great Jarvis. We also have a phrase here known as the guts of Grand Jarvis. Great or Grand Jarvis works. And it just so happens, Push-Through. Well, there's another place here called Taylor Island. I know a lot of Taylors from this region. Go along the coast here a little ways. You're into an area called Canagra. Boss Island is over here. All of this area was once, and still is in some places, settled. But it all got resettled. I believe this Pass Island right there. That's Hermitage. Let me go to satellite view for a minute. That's too big for Pass Island, surely. That's Pass Island. That's where my dad is from. That's where my father's family came from. And he's an exception to the rule. His family only had 3 siblings. His siblings were only numbered 3. That wasn't the average. That was a little, like, that was lower than the average. So when they resettled, they didn't move to Hermitage for long. They resettled again. But this whole area, places like Hermitage, were they were looked on as an alternative that would have been preferable to moving to somewhere like Harbour Breton, which is the larger area and where a larger, more developed area where there was a road. This is a dirt road down this end. All of these little islands, all of these little bays and coves and stuff, they were all resettled where they could be, and some places didn't. But they're barely existing now, like Francois or Francois is what it says on the map here. That still has a ferry link, but it only goes there once a week. There's no roads to this area. None at all. My last video was trying to see if I could get a snap or two of this region. Here's Banjo, here's Ramia. I was trying to see these from offshore, from the airplane. So, that's the region we're talking about with these 2 brothers. They were from Push-Through on the south coast of Newfoundland. 1969, they moved 10 kilometers across the bay to Hermitage with their mother and their siblings. Picture of mother with 2 of them. While the Joey Smallwood government did not force people to leave Push-Through, Raymond Blake says the community was struggling to find teachers who would stay. His mother signed the petition to resettle just like everyone else did. They were forced. They were forced by economic circumstance to move or not get certain services. July 1969, a schooner carried the family's possessions from the old house and Push-Through to their new home. Many families who were capable of doing so actually brought their homes with them. They floated them across the water, which is not the same as bringing the land that the property was on. I mean to say that the property value of their home isn't only the home itself, it's also the fucking land it used to be built on. But I digress. Raymond Blake was 10, Hayward 13. New place came equipped with running water, a flush toilet, and a television. Raymond Blake said it was very excited for children. It was very exciting for children who were used to kerosene lamps whenever the generator back in Push-Through didn't work, as it often didn't. In the evenings, you'd go anywhere in the house and push a switch and the light would come on, says Blake. Simply amazing. Blake says resettlement was in many ways a good thing, but he adds he's come to understand it was traumatic for some. Debt and heartache. Raymond Blake, until the age of 10, Raymond lived in the now abandoned community of Push-Through. Today he lives in Regina, where he's head of the history department, University of Regina. Head of the history department in the University of Regina. Head of the history department, goddamn. Jesus, these people. People who are heartless to this man's plight, or what he's saying, are heartless. They're heartless in general, and if they ever pretend to have a heart for someone else, it's because they're hiding something. The dirty bastards. But anyway, Raymond says his mother was stoic, but he wondered what it was like for her as a widow with 6 children. With 6, that's twice as many children as my father's family had. She was separated from her friends and her relatives and was an outsider in her new community. They didn't all move to Hermitage. That's the point. They didn't all, from Push-Through, move to Hermitage. Minnie Blake received just under $2,500 Canadian, at the end of the 1960s, right before the oil crisis. A couple years, she received $2,500 to help with the move. But her son said the only house she could find in Hermitage cost twice that, leaving the family in debt. Grandmother moved in with the family of Raymond Blake, but Raymond Blake said she deeply missed her old garden and pushed through, which probably provided a hell of a lot of food over the years. Don't think that she was ever as happy ever again, says Blake. He remembers that even the annual flower service at the cemetery in Hermitage was painful for the newcomers because they could not visit the graves of their own loved ones. Father's graves in Pushkar. Again, this is 10 kilometers across the bay. They would more than likely have arranged a period. I'm not going to try to take away from what he's saying here, but in our day, it's common to arrange for special trips for reunions and the like to go back and do that type of thing. That became more common, I guess, over as time went on, but they were only 10 kilometers across the water. Children mocked and bullied. That I definitely believe. Blake said some resettled children faced ridicule for the way they talked, and playground fights were common. I entirely believe that. His brother said some young people paid a life-altering price. I've heard from a number of people who said they dropped out of school, people who said they were bullied when they were sent to their new communities, says Hayward Blake. So, this is an untold story. He said one woman contacted him recently and told him that after her own family resettled, other students made her the laughingstock of the school. Some students also stole her lunch money. Thanks, guys. A woman said she quit school and went to work at the local fish plant. While the Blake brothers said they were not bullied, they're taking action so others can have a voice. Plaque or scholarship to remember. Today, Hayward Blake works at Memorial University in St. John's Department of Education. Raymond is head of History Department, University of Regina. Calculates that around 30,000 people moved between the mid-50s and the mid-70s. I'd say that's probably accurate. 2 men have drafted letters to the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as well as Premier Dwight Ball, the Premier Ball, after calling them to apologize for the resettlement program. They also want compensation and redress. Raymond Blake says he's not looking for any money himself. Instead, he'd like to see something like a plaque or at a museum or a scholarship at Memorial University. The apologies first and foremost is what we're looking for, added his brother, Hayward. We're also looking for recognition the resettlement of the 50s and 60s was not done in a manner that it should have been done in. Brothers say their goal is to open up a dialogue about resettlement. However, they say if there is no formal apology, they'll look into the possibility of a class action lawsuit. Brothers pointed out the government in Canada have offered apologies for injustices, including residential schools, discrimination against gay and transgender civil servants, and the head tax for immigrants. Raymond Blake was careful to say he's not comparing those experiences to what people went through in resettlement. But the brothers said resettled people are also victims. And yes, they are also victims. And it shows in how little money the mother of 6 was given to move 10 kilometers. It shows right there the fact that she was either gullible enough or willing or had no other alternative but to accept not enough and pretend that was enough. State has recognized how it's harmed people in different ways, he said. State has often recognized that. Boil. That made me angry tonight. And I'm sick and tired of hearing the naysayers talk about it. If they want to forget the fact that economics is used as a weapon, the economic power is coercion, and that's therefore force. If they want to forget that, when it's not convenient for them to remember it. So yeah, I sounded off on Facebook. One's dead, then the Maori resettlement. I think I have to admit that most of my extended family or my parents' generation or older had it way better than most of the families for the rest of Newfoundland. They had it a bit better or way better. They were lucky to find themselves either A, in an area that wouldn't be overpopulated, so there would be work for them. Ideal, we're talking about Ramya, Generation X didn't stay in Ramin. Or B, they moved from the outport to the city proper, some other city, could be any city, which most of the families obviously could not do. If you don't understand why obviously they could not do that, then you have to understand that of those 30,000 people, it was a small fraction got a winning deal. Hey, Jack, how you doing? Anyone care to check what the Canadian census tells about the population trends and migratory patterns of the past 50 years? It was if it was so good in resettled outports, where the fuck did everybody move? Answer the question. If I'll tell you what happened. My parents' generation, and especially Generation X, were separated from their ancestral lands in such a cunning fashion, the Generation Xers didn't even think twice about moving out as fast as possible. That's what happened. It's the link there in the description. That's what I use Facebook for, picking fights. To be honest. I have another link in the description. This is the other link that I have in the description. This is Jesse Ventura on the Joe Rogan Experience. This, I don't know if it was last year or the year before. The update was on December 4th, 2017. Look at this. This was published in April of this year. So I think he was speaking to Joe Rogan back at the beginning of the year.
When all that shit went down with Chris Kyle and when he said that he punched you in a bar.
Yeah, he's at 1,000 or something now. So it was published when?
Yep. You sued the family.
Right?
Like
no, I didn't.
Well,
I didn't sue the family.
You sued him, rather. Excuse me.
I sued him, and he died, and then the suit automatically goes to his estate. That's the way the legal works. She was never in any jeopardy because in any writer's contract, you have insurance from the publisher. So it's me. They portrayed it, and I became the villain, going after the widow and the kids.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the biggest lie. It was a big insurance company that's covering the whole thing. They're not out a penny. And they won't be out a penny.
But you had to explain that, I'm sure, over and over again.
No, I couldn't explain
interviews.
it. The trial got overturned because the insurance came out. So it's okay to lie in court, but if the truth comes out, you can get a new trial.
The insurance came out. What does that mean?
In court. You're not allowed to say that insurance is paying for everything, even though it's the truth. You're not allowed to say that in court.
So what happens when you say it in court?
Well, it came out and the judge allowed it to a limited degree, and then the appeals court ruled that the judge shouldn't have did that.
Because having the judge say that, it sways people
well,
to be
they
more
think that
inclined to rule against the insurance company.
Yeah.
Because the insurance company is a big conglomerate.
Even though the other side is doing what's called poor mouthing. They're getting up and saying it's taxing them financially and lying. The truth is, insurance is paying for all of it. Don't get up and lie about it.
So the other side was saying this is going to devastate our family, but in reality they weren't.
Trying to influence and in this case, let me state this. How overwhelming must the evidence have been for the jury to go against the grieving widow of the dead war veteran?
Yeah, it must be pretty overwhelming.
The evidence was overwhelming. The jury they came for me. They said he was lied, this didn't happen, and we're awarding.
Why do you think he did that? Did you know him?
No.
You didn't know him?
No.
This is the important part.
I didn't know even who he was till the thing happened. We were there on the same nights. We were at McPee's because I was there for a graduation.
So part of the story in the book is true. They were both in that club.
Of class 258. I'm class 58. It's traditionally every 100 classes, if you can, you come back to the graduation. So class 258 was graduating the next day on Friday. I came out along with my teammates from class 58 to attend that graduation the next day. So why would I say bad things about the SEALs if I'm there? That's what he said he punched me for.
Well, for people who don't know what we're talking about, because probably a lot of people listening to this have no idea what we're talking about. So let me just fill them in real quick.
All right.
I'm going to be honest here. Why else did he want to talk about it at all? He destroyed his life, is the way he puts it.
The book, American Sniper, the movie with Bradley Cooper, was just a giant hit.
You can't have a sexual assault charge against Ventura, so we'll do the next best thing. We'll call him something less than a patriot.
Movie, very patriotic movie about a guy who was one of the most successful snipers in U.S. history, right? Very successful warrior, Navy SEAL, war hero. Everybody loved him. Then he goes on the Opie and Anthony show, and he says that he punched you out in
Well,
a
there's
bar.
a chapter in his book
Yes.
where he writes that he called me scruff face.
Yeah.
And he said that I said SEALs deserve to die. That, in other words, he accused me of treason.
Yes.
And I was out there for a SEAL graduation. If I felt that way about my old unit, why would I be attending?
And what happened when he said that to you?
Did you grab his ponytail?
No. You slugged him? Good.
I punched him.
Good for you.
Where'd you punch him? Bravo.
In the face.
What happened? That's when you take a headshot.
I mean, Jesse Ventura, he's
Big man.
He's an older guy, too.
Yeah, he's
And
an older guy.
Of course, all the guys then started making fun of me. So, what geriatric you got to do?
Yeah, of course.
Well, wait, when you hit him, did he hit you back or?
No, he went down.
You
Hey,
No,
was he?
I don't think he was out. It definitely took him off balance. He went down and.
But the ref wasn't looking. They never are.
Did his walker fall with him?
Yeah, I think he fell out of his wheelchair.
He's a big dude.
Wow,
man.
he went down.
He had a big dude. He's still Jesse the Body. I mean, he's an older guy, but he's still a big, strong guy.
Did he awkwardly get up and have to walk out of the place?
I don't know. I took off running because the cops were already outside, and as soon as I hit him, I knew SEAL party, SEAL bar. Cops are watching. They saw the whole thing happen, so I took off running.
Yeah.
Sounds really true, doesn't it?
So he wrote in the book, he gave you a nickname in the book.
Scruff face.
Well, whoever, I mean, he might not have even, when he wrote it in the book, he might not have even thought that he was going to give that to you. I mean, who knows what was going on. My thought was, at the time, I was trying to wrap my head around why anybody would do this. And I was thinking, well, maybe he's just trying to generate as much controversy as possible, to generate as much income as possible from his book, and it just got out of hand. I was trying to put it together because there was a couple other fabrications, right? There was a shooting at a gas station that never took place.
Yep, and he said that during Katrina he was on the dome and shot people who were looting.
Yeah, that was disturbing because that's murder.
Yeah, and he also lied about his medals. The Navy had to come out and correct. He said he had 2 silver stars and 5 bronze stars. He had 1 silver star and 3 bronze stars, so he lied about 3 medals.
Well, it's 1 and 3 is impressive enough. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then they try to give him an excuse saying, well, he was confused. No, you're not. When you get a medal like that, it's like graduating from college. They give you a certificate that puts on your wall if you win the bronze star or the silver star.
But as a SEAL yourself, and
he threw me under the bus.
What does that feel like to you? Because
treason.
But this is, I mean, obviously, this is something that's very near and dear.
This is the funny part of it. If one of the 2 of them is lying, one of them's yelling treason.
To your heart.
Hugely. He has made it to where I can't go to a reunion anymore. There were 170 SEALs that wanted me kicked out of the UDT SEAL Association.
Character assassination to such a degree that he is prevented from ever running for office.
Over his lie. And the lies of his buddies who came up and tried to testify for him.
So what did
it got embarrassing in the trial.
Said that it actually happened?
No, they couldn't say it, but they tried to say everything else to make it seem like it did.
Well, how the hell did they do that?
Well, because they dance around the questions and the lawyering, and, well, you have to piece together. There wasn't one witness that saw me get hit, and there wasn't one witness that heard me say anything he attributed to me.
And weren't you visible the next day?
There's
videos
we have pictures.
And photographs, no punch.
We have photographs that night, them posing for pictures with me. If I had said all this stuff, why would they have take pictures with me?
What does that feel like when someone just fucking lies?
Horrible. And what makes
lies about a terrible thing.
And what's worse about it is the media jumps on it and convicts me of it because why? They broke the story when I went off the grid in Mexico where I couldn't even come back.
So they broke the story. Do you think they knew that
I'm
you were
starting
off the
to
grid?
believe it.
But didn't it happen on the Opie and
They knew when to break the story so that the damage would be long-term by the time he came to understand what was happening.
Anthony show?
Yeah.
But I don't think that was planned because I know those guys.
Yeah, but was the whole? Well, they also did it. He did it that day on O'Reilly later that afternoon.
So once he named you, he just started naming you everywhere.
Oh yeah, then it went viral.
Wow. See, well, what about that? How about that?
Went viral, and everyone convicted
As
me
good as he looked on Opie and Anthony, you can see him shaking too.
because they said, "Well, this Iraq War veteran wouldn't lie." Really?
I watched.
Well, let me tell you how bad it's destroyed my life. I can't get hired for a job. During my trial, after it was over, guess what happened? 34 major media conglomerates entered the trial with that amicy, they call it, or whatever, of influencing the Court of Appeals to overturn my verdict, and they did it. 34 media conglomerates, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all of these media conglomerates.
My goodness. My goodness.
Conglomerates appealed to the Court of Appeals to overturn my verdict.
But why?
Because I won on something called unjust enrichment. They want the ability to be able to defame you and profit from it. In other words, I'll put it, what these judges accommodated them with, there's going to be another trial. They've ordered a new trial.
Oh, God.
So I got to go through it again. But I'm glad, because when it comes out 2 juries and 2 judges find Kyle guilty, who's not going to believe it then? But the point is, they've ordered a new trial. They threw out the whole verdict of the jury, the federal judge who wrote substantial evidence supporting the jury's verdict. They did all that, and they violated their own rules. A 76-year rule. Here's what it states. Because it happened during summation, where the judge allowed it in, my attorney, it ended up 4 questions in an 11-day trial and a half a page of a 20-page summary, and it was overturned on that. And they overturned it because they felt it was undue influence on the jury, that they found out that insurance was paying for everything.
That's
so it was
it? Just that
perfectly,
one factor?
Well, and here's the deal. If the rules state that...
Here's the deal.
If in final argument they say something, you must object. You must object so the trial lawyer has a chance to rule during final argument, and the jury has a chance to hear the ruling. They never objected.
So they must object to undue influence because of the fact that it was...
They never objected. The jury was dismissed at 11:58. At 12:02, they then objected. The judge overruled them, and we were done with it. Well, these 2 judges, Riley and Shepard, have now overturned the case on something that was never objected to in trial. They objected to it, so they overturned the jury and the federal judge. Then they also overturned my unjust enrichment claim because the media didn't want it. What they've allowed now is the media can defame you and profit from it, and you can't get any of their profits, no matter how they harm you. Well, that's the equivalent of if you went out and robbed the bank and they caught you, and they sentence you to 2 years in prison for the bank robbery, but when you get out, you get to keep all the money you took.
So that's in this particular case.
Yes,
you're talking about this particular
case. Which will now be the standard, because they've ruled that way. They now make it to where you can profit from wrongdoing.
Because of this case.
Yep.
This is such a touchy case because it's so indicative of the complications.
Why is it touchy, Joe?
Of people. Because people are not simple.
It's really not touchy. He lied.
He did lie, but
and he harmed me with his lie.
But that's not what I'm saying. What's complicated is he's also the subject of this gigantic movie and this symbol of patriotism, where
exactly, he's brand something. So when he signed up for intelligence job, guess what he won? He won the poster boy competition.
So many people will say, Chris Kyle, rest in peace. So many people would have, I saw a cloud that was, someone took a photo in the cloud, and that's not a cloud, that's Chris Kyle. It looked like a sniper in the cloud. It's Chris Kyle guarding the skies. Like, it became a meme. I mean, it became
a meme. Anything will do for the lack of faith. They need to have anything to latch faith onto. That's what it is.
This thing where it wasn't, he was a representative of the brave military, like the portrayal. But hold on a second, the portrayal that Bradley Cooper played in that movie was so simplistic and so it was like right out of a Joseph Campbell movie.
Let me add.
No, it wasn't right out of a Joseph Campbell movie. What the fuck is Joe saying there? Joseph Campbell movie. What Joseph Campbell movies are there? Is there ever been a Joseph Campbell movie at all? Joseph Campbell filmography. American mythologist, writer, and lecturer. Best known for his work in comparative mythology. Oh, so he didn't actually do any movies at all. He never... A Joseph Campbell movie. Joseph Campbell filmography. Finding Joe, film about... film about. Oh, okay. Biography and filmography. Let's see. Hollywood.com. Page not found. Imagine. How about at IMDb? Oh, Tyler Joseph Campbell. That's not Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell at IMDb. Was born in March. Let's see. So filmography. He was a writer in The Looney Tunes Guide to Fairy Tales, 2007. He was given thanks in 4 movies. Appears himself in a TV series here, Joseph Campbell, another TV series. A documentary here in 1987 as himself. World of Joseph Campbell, a documentary. TV miniseries, a documentary. A Joseph Campbell movie. What kind of movies are those then?
Perfect hero's journey.
Had I not gone to court, that would have been in the movie.
It would have.
Really?
I had to stop it.
They were going to have him punch you in the movie.
Well, certainly it's in the book.
Holy shit.
And I had to stop it.
Holy
because
shit.
No, when we were in trial, you know what they tried to do to diminish my role? Because when they knew they were going to lose, their lawyer got me on the stand and he said, Mr. Ventura, he said, would it surprise you
trying to get another scene for the movie
to know that the first draft of the movie doesn't have you in it? Trying to prove how insignificant my
Why would you
part
say
of the book.
First draft of the movie? That doesn't mean shit.
Well, the first draft of the script.
But so what if the second draft has you in it?
Though. I said, here's my response. I said, no, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Because I said, we've sent 2 letters to Warner Brothers warning them that if I'm indeed in this movie, they will be next to be sued. So we put Warner Brothers on notice that if this chapter's included in your movie, you will get sued next. And you know people out here, they don't want to step into a lawsuit. That's the only thing that kept me from being punched.
If you ask me, American Sniper has another untold story attached to it, and it is very, very simple to understand in Hollywood movie terms. I'll tell you the movie. I'll write down the name. In the middle of the movie, there's another movie being made and screened and talked about and ranted about.
Out in that movie and portrayed me as a villain in that frickin' movie. And I've never seen the movie.
Not just a villain, way more than a villain.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that is insane. It is insane because what's crazy to me and what's complicated about this is that there are thousands and thousands of brave men and women who have risked their lives, sacrificed their lives, and this guy becomes this figurehead, and where he rises above,
including me,
including you. Yes, very important. But he rises above all this and becomes this
icon figure.
Yes, this iconic figure that you can't tarnish. And then the truth is irrelevant, and they're willing to sacrifice people like you.
And last week, yeah, good movie, right?
And the truth, just for this overall image of patriotism.
Five act
it's crazy. Weird. What a crazy place that must have been for you.
Still is. In fact, do you know that this person that I told you about with the seizures, the seizure disorder started right after this.
Oh, I'm sure.
And
the
seizures,
stress must have been overwhelming.
Doctors have said seizures can be caused by stress. So I hold Chris Kyle directly responsible for the seizure disorder also that I had to face that marijuana cured.
Did you ever communicate with him face to face?
Only once at the first, when we first in June, I didn't even know who he was. And then in June of 2012, after the book came out in January, we had a...
So, I'm not going to say he didn't die, but there would have been reasons for him to be whitsect because of the things that had happened. So he might not have, but the likelihood is that he did. One of the things which is kind of stinky is the way the wife and the kids get used as a focal point. Ventura said, well, that was the way the media picked it up. It was me against the widow and the children for the money that was due to Chris, when in fact it was an insurance job it was an insurance deal. And the other thing is that Chris and his wife did not have a good marriage. They weren't necessarily happy. So a separation that was long-term, like a divorce settlement
conference where he kept saying that if he met me in person, we could work it out. So at this conference, we agreed I would meet him in a room, the judge in the corner, and just he and I, like you and I are here. We sat down in the room, and I looked him right in the face, and I said, why did you do this? You never punched me. He looked me back and said, yes, I did. I turned to the judge. I said, there's no need to go any farther. I said, if he's not going to admit it didn't happen face-to-face, one-on-one, and I challenge his courage. Because, yeah, he had the courage to go to Iraq. He had the courage to shoot all these people.
What courage is, I got to ask you, what courage is that?
But he didn't have the courage to tell the truth, did he?
What a bizarre moment that must have been, sitting across from that guy.
Yeah, and he looked at me and said, yes, I did.
What was the look in his face?
I believe, and I'm not a doctor, but I've done some studying, I think he was a sociopath. Sociopaths can lie and hold a straight face, and they lie to the point where they believe their own lie.
He did not look comfortable on Opie and Anthony, if you ask me. He looked a little bit shaky. He looked, maybe that's the camera shaking around. Where are we at? 1609. I'm going to go back here in time. Let's watch this one more time.
Why would I be attending?
And what happened when he said that to you?
Did you grab his ponytail?
No.
You slugged him? Good.
I punched him.
Good for you.
Where'd you punch him?
Bravo.
Hang on.
Good. And what happened when he said that to you?
Did you grab his ponytail?
No.
You slugged him? Good.
I punched him.
Good.
Voice, okay.
Where'd you punch him?
Bravo.
In the face.
What happened? That's when you take a headshot.
Well, I mean, Jesse Ventura, he's big man. He's an older guy, too.
Yeah, he's an older guy.
Of course, all the guys then started making fun of me. So, what geriatric you got to do?
Yeah, of course.
Wait, when you hit him.
How bizarre is it that this iconic figure...
Well, and then look how he died.
Yeah.
Well, he had no training in post-traumatic stress. He's not medical, and yet he's taking this Marine to a gun range who's suffering from post-traumatic stress. Wouldn't common sense tell you not to put a weapon in the hands of someone suffering from post-traumatic stress?
Well, I think every
what
guy
do you do?
suffering
Tell him
from
to man
post-traumatic
up?
stress is
What
different,
well,
right?
what do they tell him? To man up? Why would you put a weapon in somebody's hands who's suffering from post-traumatic stress when you have no medical training? How is Kyle qualified to treat this guy?
Well, I would assume it would be based on his own post-traumatic stress.
But he didn't have it.
He didn't have it at all. No?
He was never treated for it. He may have had it.
The book says so.
Maybe that's why he did what he did. I don't know.
God, what a crazy place to be.
But for me, it's like I've been accused of something I didn't do. I don't even know the guy. Never. I may have met him that night briefly.
Well,
Maybe.
let me tell you something. I obviously didn't get 1/1,000,000% of the amount of hate that you did, but just reading.
I got read off September 11th of this year. I was in New York doing this book tour, and I got read off in a hotel lobby over this.
What does that mean, read off?
A guy yelled and screamed at me in front of the entire hotel lobby.
Jesus Christ.
That's what I live with now. And I haven't been damaged. My reputation isn't damaged over something I never did.
Defamation.
What I was going to say is I
Bible.
obviously haven't experienced 1/1,000,000th of the hate that you have, but we read this article on the air. We were trying to figure out what happened when your case was going on. And so we read this article that was, I don't know, it was in the New York Times. See if you can find the article detailing all the various lies.
Oh, that's
that
the
have
New
been
Yorker
proven.
magazine.
The New Yorker. Yeah.
New Yorker they did an
It's
investigation
stunning.
of him.
But it's stunning. And just reading that, the fucking amount of hate tweets and Facebook tweets and you fucking coward.
I'm curious now. New Yorker Chris Kyle expose. That was 5 months after he was shot. Graduated in 92, enrolled in State University, dropped out. Supporting veterans was only one way that Kyle tried to establish a new identity off the battlefield. Trying to build a new cover, in other words. Hard to let go of being a hero. I'll let you get rid of that crap up there. The denials of certain stories. So it's all here in this article. I'm going to post a link to this. Or maybe I won't.
And you this and you that. I'm like, hey, I didn't write it. Okay? I'm just trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. And if someone put something like that in the New Yorker with verified claims, I mean, everything's verified. Like what they were saying that he said and what actually had happened was all verified. It's very, very, very confusing that somehow or another this slipped through the cracks and that this became their iconic figure. Again, not discounting, along with you, the thousands and thousands of patriotic Americans that risked their lives.
And he is too. Nobody's denying he wasn't a great sniper. Nobody's denying he didn't do his job. I've never denied that from him or said that about him.
What only thing I would say is that the movie doesn't do anything to prove anything is true about Kyle, if we're using the book as the proof.
He may be the best. I don't know. I'll still put my money on Carlos Hathcock, though, the Marine, as being the best sniper.
Well, especially now.
But he did his job and he did it well. But why did he have to take an old veteran? That would be like me taking a World War II guy and throwing him under the bus.
Why the fuck would he choose you?
Because I had fame. I think he got jealous that night. We were at the bar because everyone crowded around and wanted their picture with me.
Wow.
I don't know. He'll never be around to answer it. I'd love to know why he picked out me. I think because I'm probably the most famous, maybe, or I developed to be the most famous SEAL other than Dick Marcinko, the Rogue Warrior.
Great books.
Yeah.
I've read his books. Are amazing.
He's a friend of mine, Richard Marcinko.
When you sat down and you're talking to this guy, how much time were you actually in the room with him?
Oh, couple of minutes was all. The minute he looked me in the eye and said, "I sure did hit you," I turned to the judge and said, "We got nothing more to talk about."
You didn't want to.
I even offered him. I said, "If you will walk out to me with the press and admit you fabricated this story, I will forgive you in front of the press, and we will go on with our lives." He would not do it. He did not have the courage to stand up and tell the truth.
It takes a lot of courage.
I'm going to tell you, if that answers my question, which is, why did he pick Jesse Ventura? It was because someone else above him picked Jesse Ventura and said, you got to take out Ventura. Next target, intelligence boy.
To admit you lied about something that massive. I mean, this isn't lying about speeding, right? This is a massive, massive lie.
But what about ruining my life, ruining my reputation, ruining my wife's life? I lost my conspiracy theory show because of it.
Really?
I can't get hired. Right now, I can't.
He lost his conspiracy theory show over this.
Get a job. My last job was on the internet at Aura TV because the owner's Carlos Slim from Mexico. From that, you know who I'm hired? You know who I work for now? The Russians. Russian TV RT's the only people that'll hire me because 34 media conglomerates entered this case to overturn me. You think they're going to hire me?
Now explain that. Why do you think they did that? Do you think they did that because if they overturn your case, if they can somehow or another...
Because they don't want to have to fact check.
But is that it, or is that discrediting you?
Is that it? Joe, do you hire Jamie or not?
Like, that was a gigantic hit movie. But if they can discredit you, it makes that movie still valuable.
Not only that, it stops me from running for president, don't it, if they can discredit me.
But then, big old dirty grin on his face. He knows it. He knows it, and I know it too. When I heard him say it, I was like, you know what? He's right. Finally said the truth. Jesse Ventura is a stand-up guy. Agreed. So, yeah. That's the reason why I've been interested in this particular story, in a nutshell. That exactly answers why American Sniper. And I think right now is a great time to do it, as opposed to focusing too heavily on the normal left-right problem. When the president says both sides are to blame, well, what the president says and who the president might have been, I think that might be worth talking about. Other than Hillary, because Hillary wouldn't win in it. That's the other side of that coin. Hey, I gotta have a listen to this first before I start playing it.
Not me minded, just the sound.
Little music. Also.
Speaking of like Newfie songs, this is a good one.
Yeah.
This is called Pad Song. I've been playing this one for a long time.
Pad Song.
A couple boys from out in Arnold's Cove way, where they're living there now, but they're not from there. They did a whole bunch of songs back in the early 80s. Everybody loved them. They didn't realize where they came from. I don't mean that like nasty to people from Placentia Bay or anything. No. I mean they copied Irish songs and they didn't talk about it. But they didn't copy this one. For it was up with the dawning, then down to the stage, and haul on your oil clothes each morn, put your 9-foot oars across her and leave the land behind, put her out through the sun and on the sand, and it was all laying in the cross-handed way, hoping that the dogfish wouldn't run, and curse that old wooden punt just to keep your spirit high. Your eye to the westward for the squall. For the cross-hand it said was the paradise way. It was such when a man was on his own, and you owned him and a penny got you back. He with cod oil, and the pride was in the strength of your arm. And it was all in the cross-handed way, hoping that the dogfish wouldn't run, and curse that old wooden punt just to keep your spirit high, and your eye to the westward for the squall. Sure woman didn't worry, she was young and fair and strong, and she watched her from her garden on the hill. It was all day and in the cross-banded way, hoping that the dogfish wouldn't run, and curse that old wooden pun just to keep your spirit high, your eye to the westward for the squall. Now with 2 boys born coming into their own, all your comrades went chasing a dream, and you died never knowing of the wealth that you passed on. Well, it's only now it started to be seen, for it was all and in the cross-banded way, hoping that the dogfish wouldn't run, and curse that old wooden pun for to keep your spirit high and your eye to the westward for the squall. Thank you. A bit of pad sound there for you. So before I got down here tonight, I went over my long list of songs that I haven't played in at least a year. And this is high on the list.
Is Jesse Ventura a Dem or Republican? He is neither, my friend. Neither, I think. I think he's in between, or neither, or he's in advance of them if you go by some political maps. I think he's strong on the libertarian spectrum toward the front. He'll make classical libertarian arguments most of the time, which is not a criticism of him. I think it's a decent way of going about it. It's at least honest to his economic point of view. Because he would think the free market will determine well, but that's what he's arguing against, is the restrictions that have been placed on his free market. Yeah, might as well get back into the grinds, he says. Quite honest, I was tempted to take a sidetrack here today too. I checked out some content last night from he's Reformer, yeah, Reform Party. Either way, I think what he's saying is actually correct. That he was prevented from running for president. If you really look at the long-term strategic value of what happened to him, he was prevented from running for president. And he had probably not announced that he intended to do so. Not in a terribly public way, but he had been talking to a lot of people about it. Pre-Trump, I don't know. I think Trump may have stepped up. This is what I asked a stream or two ago. I think Trump either stepped up to replace Ventura because others had already talked about it amongst themselves, and Ventura and Trump were both in the running, or Trump would have been an establishment candidate and Ventura would have run against him and won. So just imagine, for example, what the possible ticket may have looked like. Let's assume Hindenburg v. Sanders v. Trump v. Ventura. Pick out the establishment candidates and you see kind of what's really on the go here. I think Hindenburg and Trump are linked. They're basically one entity. I've been saying this for a while too. V. Sanders, v. Ventura. I think that's what it really looked like. So Sanders tried to take the Hindenburg part out, but it wouldn't have mattered because he would have been running against Trump. The only one who really would have been able to defeat Trump, I think, was probably Ventura and not Sanders. After Sanders makes his bid and misses, he falls into Hindenburg's camp. So let's scratch Sanders from the list. Right? Hindenburg, Trump v. Ventura. That's the way it looks to me. Ventura is taken out of the running 2 years in advance, and it's sewed up. Some of the other interesting things to look at is Trump's policies compared to Hindenburg's policies. For example, the tax plan that just went through doesn't treat it much differently than what. It's a little bit better than what Clinton would have offered. But other than that, it's practically the same tax plan. So one of the criticisms being offered now, people that are waving their hands about the Trump tax plan is, geez, compared against Hindenburg's is not worse. It's not worse than what we would have had under Clinton. So why pretend that it's worse than what we would have had under Clinton? Similarly, Trump responded really, really quickly with the Syria attack back in the new year, the new first part of 2017. The one thing he seems to not want, and what everybody's happy about, is global thermonuclear war. Trump, I mean, as opposed to Hindenburg. If Trump is establishment, why do they want to take him out? They can't control. Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. He plays well enough to be able to catch Ventura's base. So they can afford to take him out. If they do take him out, who do they have in the position now? It isn't Hindenburg. It's Pence. Is president apparent? Not Hindenburg. That's my way of looking at it. And Pence has been problematic for Trump already. So if he really wants to hold on to the position and run again and hold his Republican nomination, he may well have to do something about Mr. Pence. Like, would he change horses midstream, do you think? Would he change his VP if it wasn't working in 4 years? That'd be my question. That'd tell me if he's establishment or not. The one thing he's done really well is stop focusing on, at least it seems to me from the limited amount of media I'm consuming, the thing that I think he's done best is to stop focusing on industrial capacity, which is, like, he stopped focusing his efforts on anything except, say, the fake news. That's what makes him anti-establishment, is his stance against what the news will do. Ventura sees pretty much eye to eye on that, for the reasons he just listed. They would have to crash the economy to rule out re-election. Yeah, whoever they is, probably to rule out the re-election of Trump, true. But if they can take Trump out, Pence ends up in the position. I don't think he'd get re-elected. And I don't think there's going to be a Democrat capable. After this last cycle, it's probably going to take them another decade before they'll even take another run, a real run. So what's the choices now going to look like for the next 10 or 15, 20 years even? It's going to be a choice of mildly reform, openly reform, or establishment. Trump does present as a bit of a reformer. He's more reformed than not. And he was supportive of the Democrats early in his, at least, I heard it described this way today too, he was considering how strong he was with the conservative base in terms of his property arrangements or his property involvement. He still had reputation as being very fair. Like, he didn't care about color of skin or anything like that. There was no issue with racism with Trump. because he was a Democrat. Funny stuff. So I did a whole bunch of re-recording of audio last stream. I got a whole ton of it more left to do, and I'm trying to figure out which of the two I'd rather. Trying to think if I could do this or if I could get into this other thing I wanted to do. Honestly, care about Joe the plumber from what I read about business. I do too. I think he's more concerned about what is true for most people than has classically. But that being said, he still comes from a position of privilege compared to most people. So he's navigating the populist into the spectrum in the same way that Ventura once did. Difference between them, where'd they come from, how'd they get where they got. His business dealings do seem to be mostly above board, and you can't really criticize him for playing the game well in the way that he's played it. So it becomes entirely about, well, we either paint him as a racist, or we paint him as a sexist, or he's a friggin' sexual predator, or whatever. So appealing about him. I'm sure about that. He also knows how to make the argument, much like a Ventura, which is if you work hard, you should be able to do good in an economy and in a country like the United States. Ventura has been for the last number of years consistently and incrementally forced out of the situation that he was in. I'm going to close this down for a second. Looking for YouTube. I'm going to offer another piece of the puzzle, which I only picked up in the last couple weeks. Search watch history. World according to Jesse. Oh, it's WATJ. Right. This is his last RT. Or at least I don't know. They might have posted another one since then. It was published about a week ago. Just over two. Just over a week.
Welcome to my world. Come along for the ride. The world according to Jesse.
Talking to Jimmy Dore in this one.
If you think corporate news is bad now, it's about to get a whole lot worse.
He's not getting younger. Skipping forward a little bit. I'll post a link here for you if you want to watch the entire thing.
Jimmy Dore is a comedian and host of the Jimmy Dore Show on TYT Network. Jimmy does a great job covering current events and other important topics we don't often hear about in mainstream news. He joined me earlier from Los Angeles. The world according to Jesse. Jimmy, you've created an audience for yourself, not mainstream America. How difficult has it been for you to attain that audience fighting against the mainstream media?
Well, it's tough because they do everything they can to discourage people from finding independent news. But I'll tell you, my biggest challenge, Jesse, is just to try to get people to understand that there are actual facts that you can be reported. See, what happened is that the mainstream news media, the corporate news media, they've muddied the waters now, where they've changed. You're supposed to be an objective journalist. Now they've made it that they're neutral, which means that there aren't any facts anymore, that everybody's opinion is equal, which is why half the country still doesn't accept the science of climate change, because the way they report it. I'll give you an example. Every time they report climate change, they pretend like it's a debate. This is like, I'm watching Brian Williams.
I wouldn't even, I'm with Trump only ideologically here. I don't think climate change is the thing to talk about because it's too easy to change what you mean by climate. You can be talking about economic climate. You can talk about cultural climate, and climate change will still work as your rallying cry.
He brought on a senator from Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn, who didn't believe in climate change. And then he brings on Bill Nye, the science guy. He's got science right in his name. And he says, of course, there is climate change and we need to fix it and do something about it. And the senator says there isn't climate change and we're not doing anything to it. And then Brian Williams says, well, I appreciate the debate. Hey, you know what? It's not a debate in science. It's only a debate on your corporate news show because you're funded by fossil fuels. You know, that's the most important news of our entire generation right now is climate change. And it's being reported like it's still a debate. You couldn't report the sports that way, Jesse. You couldn't say, hey, the Cubs played the Dodgers yesterday. Dodgers said they won 4-3. Cubs said they won 4-3. Who really won? I guess we'll never know. But thanks for the debate. So I guess my biggest challenge, not only getting my word out there, but I do get it out there, my biggest challenge is convincing people that there are actually objective facts that you can report, that everything doesn't have two sides. There is a fact and there is not a fact. There is a fact there weren't weapons of mass destruction. That's a fact, right? That we shouldn't have gone into Iraq. That was illegal. Our country actually did torture people. Those are facts. These are things that are not up for debate, and it's hard for me to convince them.
Kyle still kind of services the whole idea that we went into Iraq. I mean, when I say we, it's not the same for me as a Canadian, but we went into Iraq on a crusade is Kyle's way of explaining it.
That these are facts. So that's my biggest challenge, is to push back against the propaganda that they hear. Not only the propaganda that's coming from corporate America, but just the idea that there's two sides to every story, which you and I know there isn't.
Absolutely. You know, what got me, what people fail to realize, and what I tell people, the downfall of our news media was actually the show 60 Minutes. And people are taken back like that. I said, well, now 60 Minutes was a good program. It exposed a lot of stuff. But I said, here's what was the downfall. Up until that point in time, networks used to write the news off. They didn't care if it made money. They'd make it up in the entertainment department. But when 60 Minutes came on and shot to #1 in the ratings, the light went off with the bean counters. They said, oh, you mean we can make money off the...
I like Ventura because he does things like that. He says the light went off with the initials game. Bean counters.
News, and from that point on, news wasn't news, it was entertainment at that point. Jimmy, do you think mainstream media, it's obvious, is dumbing down America today?
Well, I agree. Yes, I certainly do. Well, put it this way. Last Friday was the tax bill. Also, they're getting ready to gut net neutrality. And if you turn on your corporate news, it was nonstop Russia, 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 General Flynn, Russia. And you know what? It doesn't affect my life. And if you go out into the middle of America, which is where I go all the time doing people aren't talking about this stuff, right? People are talking about the stuff that they've always talked about. Wages, health care, infrastructure. These are the things people want. Healthcare, wages, good jobs. That's what people are talking about, and good schools. People aren't talking about any of that other stuff. So yes, I think the news media, you know what's funny about, for instance, if you try to get the truth about war, you're never going to get it through our establishment news media. Let's remember, every war, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, ABC News, they all beat the drum for war, including MSNBC. You know, MSNBC fired Phil Donahue, they said for low ratings, even though he had the highest rated show at the time, and it was because he was against the Iraq war, which got, we found out because a memo got leaked.
I can hear Ventura laughing in the background.
The kind of the news that we're pushing against. When all through the Iraq war, let me just say this, Jesse, I'm sorry to filibuster, but Brian Williams got in trouble for puffing up his war record, and then NBC threw him under the bus. But the real thing that Brian Williams did was, if he would bring on generals who were being paid by the military-industrial complex to give us the straight dope about what was happening in Iraq, but they weren't, because they were being paid by defense contractors, and they were always advocating for...
When I first heard this, I actually stopped and wondered about something here, but he says, the straight dope. Ever heard of Cecil Adams? This is like Snopes, but for people who really know that Snopes can't be trusted. Learn about Cecil Adams, the world's smartest human. The world's the most intelligent human being. We know this because he knows everything, and 2, he's never wrong. Number 2, how do we know Cecil knows everything and is never wrong? Because he said so, and he would never lie to us. No, really, listen. Read the columns. Soon you'll agree that this is no ordinary man. Oh, man. So, yeah, the straight dope. In case you've never heard of it. Should probably put a link in the description of the video, too.
More war. Brian Williams never told us they were being paid by defense contractors. The guy who did tell us that won a Pulitzer Prize for it. And then even after that, Brian Williams still didn't tell us that. So to me, my question to those people like Brian Williams, how many checks do you take from a defense contractor in the middle of an illegal war before you stop calling yourself a journalist? How can you be in bed with a defense contractor in the middle of an illegal war and call yourself a journalist is pretty tough for me to understand.
Jimmy, the Phil Donahue thing goes even farther than that. Yes, MSNBC took Phil off because he opposed the Iraq war. At that very same time, I had just come out of office. They had signed me to a 3-year contract. They wouldn't let me on the air because I got a phone call right before we were going on the air, and it said, does the governor support the invasion of Iraq? And my subordinate said, no. They said, is there a chance he'd change his mind? The subordinate said, I don't think so. They wouldn't even put me on the air. They essentially paid me for all 3 years. I was under contract. I couldn't do any news shows. I couldn't do any cable shows. They, in essence, bought my silence. They paid me the entire 3-year contract, and I couldn't get on TV, just as they pulled Phil Donahue. So it does show that our corporate media today falls victim. They don't represent us. They're not the fourth branch of government of what they're supposed to be. But, Jimmy, let's go on to the other big topic, net neutrality. What's going to happen if they get rid of net neutrality, in your opinion?
So, well, what will happen is voices like mine will be throttled back. They're already showing results of people like Google is now throttling things that they think might be subversive to our government, right? So they're trying to throttle RT, but they're also hurting people like Common Dreams and Media Matters. So lots of independent news people are going to be drowned out at the behest of behemoths. Let's remember, we used to have 50 giant news media companies.
When he says independent, though, he's part of the TYT network.
Country. Now we only have 6. So every radio show, TV show, newspaper, magazine that you consume is being controlled by one of 6 giant companies. So when we have to look to Silicon Valley for our free speech, to look to a billionaire from Silicon Valley to make sure.
The funny thing about Disney announcing that it's planning to buy out Fox, it's going to get Fox Studios, but it doesn't get the news. They have to maintain the big 6 for news purposes at least.
Ensure our free speech. That's when we're in trouble. It's not only corporate news, but I just want to make a point that NPR, public radio in the United States, I don't know how many times I've turned on NPR and hear another commercial for a bank. They don't even they just repeat what the government tells them now because they're dependent on the government, meaning the Republicans in Congress, for their funding. And who else gives them the rest of their funding? The Koch brothers, Bank of America, Walmart. These are the people who are funding public radio, which is why they never called torture. They called it enhanced interrogation techniques. That's what NPR did up until about 5 seconds ago. So just to get back to net neutrality, the answer to net neutrality, Jesse, is municipalities need to start offering broadband to their own, by themselves. So this happens in lots of cities around the nation right now. You don't hear about it. You don't hear about it on corporate television because they don't want you to know about it. And you don't hear about net neutrality on MSNBC, even though they're supposed to be lefty, because they're owned by Comcast, which wants to get rid of net neutrality. So what needs to happen, like what happened in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the city decided we're going to offer broadband to our citizens. And they do it, and it's cheaper, and it's faster, and that's the way we get around them repealing net neutrality.
Jimmy, we're running out of time. Last question. Tell me something positive. Tell me a positive thing we can look forward to. There's got to be something positive out there, in your opinion.
Well, I know that they like to blame the election, the presidential election, on Susan Sarandon, but the Democrats have lost 1,000 seats nationwide at the state level, and I wonder who they blame for that. I'm guessing Molly Ringwald. The positive going forward is the positive going forward is that Donald Trump is such a horrible, egregious guy who's so odious to the system that he rips the pretty face off the horrible stuff our government has been doing all along, like funding terrorism, funding the Saudis, what's happening in Yemen, and what the real tax structure, what Wall Street's doing. So Donald Trump, Barack Obama had a pretty face. Everybody liked him. You wanted to hug him after he was done talking, even after he opened up the Arctic to drilling twice. So that's the one positive thing, is that people are now waking up. The silver lining is that people are now waking up to the horrible stuff our government has been doing since 1980.
Jimmy, I'll tell you, that's all we got time for today, but I want to say thank you to you. Keep up the great work.
Wholeheartedly.
Because it's people like you, people like...
I try to limit my intake of it to things which I'm going to be willing to even sit through. I started watching Lionel Media before I realized he was an RT regular correspondent, though. So when I see him on RT, a lot of the time I'm happy with what he does, but I'm glad that I listened to him first on his YouTube channel and started to hear what his patter was going to be like all the time. I've started to understand his rules. And he's only recently started announcing directly that he's a Catholic. He says a retired Catholic, Lionel. But he is way more Catholic than anything else. Lionel Media, retired Catholic, whatever that means. Doesn't mean elapsed. Doesn't mean lapsed. Nope.
Me and all the rest of us that aren't kowtowing to what's happening in our country. We are the true patriots of this country, not the people that try to portray themselves. Jimmy, thank you for your insight today very much.
You're welcome. You're certainly a true patriot. I appreciate being on your show.
The world according to Jesse.
All right, it's time to turn to our fans to weigh in. Now, we asked people on Twitter whether they are for or against repeal.
Here's an interesting part of the show. At the end, they do this, and I like this.
Repealing net neutrality, and why. Marty says it's all about controlling access to information and placing it in the hands of greedy business interests and corrupt bureaucrats. The repeal of net neutrality could have far-reaching and devastating consequences. Governor, how do you respond?
I agree totally with what he says right there. This is going to be, you know, they had to get control of the internet. Government doesn't like to not be in control of nothing. They want to be in control of everything. And the internet, I was waiting for this to happen. I knew it would happen, and now it is happening, and we got to fight it, and fight it.
All right, Susan says we're already being unfairly and disproportionately censored, and Google is clearly controlling information, has been the same with Facebook and Twitter. How could repeal possibly make us any safer? Keeping people in the dark is a devious form of control. We have that in spades as it is.
As it is.
Governor.
And she's correct. She is completely correct, because now they're limiting. All those internet places are deciding what can be put on and what can't be put on. They're making the determination, not you. And you should be making the determination of what you want to put on there. They should have nothing to do with it whatsoever. They don't have to assume responsibility. If I go on there and say something crazy, well, that's Jesse Ventura saying that. It's not them. They're not the ones saying it. I am. But when they start limiting me and telling me what I can or can't say, or won't even allow me on, that is censorship in its worst form. And I'll tell you what, if these companies start doing that, people should jump off them. They should leave them and start whole new companies and get it going. That's the best thing I can think of right now. Stop doing business with them if they do that.
Some of this is occurring. There are alternatives to Facebook. There are alternatives to Twitter.
All right, and Costas says he's against it. Internet access is a utility, just like electricity and water, and it should cost the same regardless of how consumers choose to use that access. Charging different prices for different websites is just cable companies trying to steal back the market that Netflix disrupted.
Sure, absolutely.
He's wrong on repeal. Care to tell me how?
Absolutely. Brigitte, it all comes down to money.
I don't think
Always
I don't
remember
think
that.
net neutrality is the thing which is going to protect it. No, but once that facade comes down, the next thing to be attacked is what he's saying.
Great film, All the President's Men. In fact, it was on TV early this morning. When Deep Throat in the bowels of that parking lot turns to Woodward and says, "Follow the money." Well, anything in government and decisions being made, always follow the money. There will be money involved in it. Greed and money making. That's what it's all about. It's not to do what's right for people.
All right, Governor, it's time for your final thoughts. We clearly need more choices and more voices like yours, but freedom of speech seems to be under attack from all sides. Corporate, government, regulators, and even internet companies. Is speech really so dangerous?
Well, it can be because it educates people, and people in power don't like the average people to be educated. They want to be able to pull the wool over your eyes and get away with what they do, give you false flag stuff to look at, get you occupied on something over here while behind the back they're doing bait and switch, and they're really getting done what they really want to get done. And the only way we can stop that is for us to be intelligent and pay attention. Well, how are you going to be intelligent and pay attention if you're being deprived the ability to learn about something? And that's what they're doing. They're depriving the general public of the ability to educate themselves.
All right, that's a wrap. Thanks for
It is a wrap. Copy. I'm going to stick that one in the information here for the. So it'll be in the video description. Should be already here in the description. I'm updating this stuff as it goes. I skipped one link there, I think, but that's okay. Don't need to get them all. Oh, I know which one it was. It was thestraightdope.com. I can see why he might be incorrect about the repeal of net neutrality in particular. But I do wonder about the... I do wonder about some other things. Oh, look, that's the beginning. It's live. I'm clicking the wrong buttons here. Hitting on the wrong buttons. Pop that out. I need that over here. Net neutrality's principle on the internet service providers must treat all data as the same. Yeah, not discriminate or charge differently by user, content, website, platform. Right. So weird is, okay, so one of the issues which remains is charges for data via cell network versus broadband access. Using Wi-Fi base stations. Under these principles, internet service providers are unable to intentionally block, slow down, or charge money for specific websites or online content. Right. It may well be something bad on repeal. I don't doubt that. But I don't necessarily trust the way that it was set up in the first place either. Considering what we've been watching happen anyhow. We don't get charged for this, but the service is already being blocked. Service was being blocked the last 2 years, depending on who you are and what you were saying. 2 years, 8 years, 10 years, 15. Ventura got out of politics at around the same time as YouTube became a really big concern. Who is going to be in control of enforcing? A government entity. Bingo. Exactly. Who was in control of enforcing it? Because it was a government entity in cooperation with all of the related business concerns themselves. So all of the big six plus all the internet providers plus How long before we start finding out how much? Well, I mean, AT&T. Which stations do they own now? Between AT&T and like Bell here in Canada is pretty big. It's huge. Oh, this is so much nicer to look at. My old hometown. Or that's where I spent my earliest years in this community. So I still think of this as home, which is weird. It hasn't been home in a long time. But it is still home. Ooh, let me grab one of my instruments. Take me a little break before I do anything else. My Windows 10 keeps updating and I don't like what it's doing. Well, you might want to consider going over to Linux if you want to get off of the Windows. It all depends on how often you upgrade. Windows is going to be under attacks for security. Like, it's going to be a security issue. Keeps updating, like down in the what do you call it, down on your start bar, the Windows update notification. Granny's always raving and ranting, well, she's always puffing and panting, always screaming and shouting, and she's always brewing up tea. Grandpappy's never late for his dinner, yeah, he loves his leg of beef, and he washes it down with a brandy and a fresh made pot of tea. Have a cup of tea, have a cup of tea, a cup of tea, Lysig, have a cup of tea. Hallelujah, 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 Rosalie. Hallelujah, 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 Rosalie. Whatever your situation, whatever your taste or creed, tea knows no abbreviation, nor taste nor pedigree. It's a cure for hepatitis, it's a cure for common insomnia, it's a cure for tonsillitis and for water on your knee. Have a cup of tea, have a cup of tea. Hallelujah, 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 Rosalie. Hallelujah, 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 Rosalie. When it's tea in the morning, tea in the evening, tea at supper time, you can get tea when it's raining, tea when it's snowing, tea when the weather is fine. Tea with your midday stimulant, you can have tea with your afternoon tea. Any old reason, no disease, for Christ's sake, have a cup of tea. Hallelujah, 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 Rosalie. Hallelujah, 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 Rosalie. Oh, there's a little bit of kinks to get me back in good mood. Couldn't take it. Couldn't take it. Only early here tonight too. So Helljack, we lost all of our snow in about 8 hours flat last night. Pretty much lost it all. The only snow we still have is the stuff that was piled up in snowbanks from being shoveled or plowed there. The rest of the snow melted like that. Started snowing last night, a blizzard turned into rain, and when I got up today, gone. Just like that. So what I ought to do here now is to switch over my recording device so I can keep doing this. I can't get over how quick it went though. It was 8 hours. No, we got more coming, yeah, probably. Probably do, but it won't be hitting us anytime in the next 24 to 48, probably 72. Are you? Getting about an inch? Eesh. That ain't too bad. That wouldn't stop us here. We wouldn't blink for that. I don't know, did you see the snowstorm footage that I had worked on last, it wasn't this last project, but the second last one. I should pull that up again here. Open recent. The phone dumpa sorta. Snow 3's day. This is the snow that we lost last night. It's me getting ready to go out in it. Okay, there's the first one. Well, I'll give you the full 9 yards then, if you didn't see this footage yet. This is when the snowstorm started. This is how long it took it to really get into full swing. To film. Won't be using a shovel again. Camera is rolling. Lock is thrown. Good timing. With salt. With salt. This is what our 1 inch of snow looks like. This is when it's at the 1 inch mark. Much salt. This is smaller flakes. It's warming up. This is going to turn to rain maybe. We had lots of rain the last 2 days. When it was falling first, big flakes, like big flakes. Since I got up this morning, about that much snow. So I made a cut across it. Speaking of cutting across. I went out in the parking lot last night because I was looking through the front window and I saw a rat running across. I thought I saw something running. So about 5 minutes later I went out with a cigarette and had a look. Sure enough, we'll come across. Oh yeah, it's coming on half a foot worth of snow here now. Lots of wind. I don't think it's quite this blue as the camera is indicating. My own sense is that it's quite white. Quite all white. Ooh. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit to that night. On and off with the weather. Okay, we get back. Stayed at it the whole day. Grabbing my keys. It's the door. Normally I would be sparking a cigarette right about now. But this is a great little bit of film coming up here. I'll wait till I get back. So we're up to about a foot. It's not the most steady I've ever shot, but it's pretty good. Take that off. Doing as I'm doing here, I'm breaking a friggin' path. It's not my normal routine. Something just flashed up above me. Look. Something's sparking and arcing out here. Not cool. Yeah, normally I would be trying to walk out there on the road, which is a little bit easier. I get the snow up around the tops of my boots. Look at the power just blew. Look. Power just went out, right? Let's watch this. I was so happy that it happened when I went walking. Frame by frame, let's watch this. See the street lights go out, look, as the power drains from the short. City lights come back up. The areas that weren't really affected. Current model guidance suggests the system will bring significant amounts to the Great Northern Peninsula. Yeah, that's on the west coast. 10 centimeters. That'll help the ski hill out that way. So this is just not even a second after the power went down. There's a drugstore over here across the street. Its power got reset. You'll see the sign come back up. There it is. The lights just came on there behind the blue light. Right here. Chopper's rebooted fast. The road lost it. I'm out of power in my house now. Power went down in my house first a minute or two. Power looks to be out up here too. Lovely timing. Let's hope it isn't out very long. I was coming up here to get No. We use Bunker C. Bunker C. Bunker C does most of the work. There's a smaller hydro development near where my dad comes from. But it doesn't power us all. So, diesel generation. Normally, in the remote. So there's normally a bunch of them spread out in remote areas and a few big plants nearby the city. So much for using Interact tonight. It seems lighter than it is. City lights are still up. See how the power just caused them all to reboot? Here comes a plow. Cool, right? Okay, power looks to be up here. Let's hope. I had to go up there because I had to get a pack of smokes at the time, so if the power had been out, I wouldn't have got the smokes. On the way back down the road, afterwards. The wind plus the driving snow in my face, right? Oh, the wind and driving snow added together. Proper blizzard. Yeah, everything could go down. I really got to turn around. I'm walking up the middle of Jesus Road. Okay, the street lights are on my road. That's good. Might expect to see some power in my house. That's good. My computer might not have rebooted. That's good. My internet will have. Not good. I'll be covered in snow. Not good. Somebody told me winter is coming. I laughed and laughed. Beating traffic. It would be a nor'easter in the wintertime for a blizzard, and that's generally the direction it would come in from. But if you're on the south coast, there's a high likelihood you wouldn't necessarily see a frozen over harbor on the south coast. That would be a very rare occurrence. A nor'easter from the north, when you're living on the south coast, doesn't have the same humidity in it that say any kind of southerly flow would. But if you're already under a cold high pressure and it blows in from the south, it'll turn to snow. Whew. But ask me how I'm keeping my cigarette fucking lit. Looks like the power's on-ish. Looks like I've got a lot of snow coming down tonight. Ish. And this storm came around from two different directions. It started in one direction and swung around to another direction. Inside of my doorway, you'll see why I say that. This afterward, after the snow stops. Come out here. It still isn't quite over, but its character has changed markedly. The wind has come around a bit. Only a shade, but it's come around. Across the street there was one spot where a city small plow couldn't quite make it. Right there. So he stopped, pushed what he was pushing. Backed up, went out again. Parking lot's going to need to be cleared. I had to dig out a second time. We get mainly clippers here like tonight. Likely to catching somebody without winter tires. It's really high tonight. Sometimes you can spot them. A little car like that, no weight in it. Anybody remember the Chevette? Fun car in the winter. Wait now. I got a little bit of fun for the moon sort of like in this one too. Pickup truck when it doesn't have a lot of weight in it. Throw a bunch of snow in there and pack it down. Couple bags of gravel. It's cold out here. It might be getting too cold to snow, which accounts for the size of the flakes. If it gets cold enough here, yeah, it'll stop snowing. two things to see here. One is this snow just started blowing across the way. Look, it's drifting. But then there's this other thing. That's a nice picture. The sparkles and everything. And this a day later, the next evening. Like by way of comparison against the last time I did this same activity, just to run up the road. Tonight I can do it as per normal. Got no heel tread. No, not in the rubber boots. No. Meaning, dangerous to walk in those in the snow. Very slippery. With a cigarette in your lips. Oh wow. The wind seems like north. So today, the only snow we have left today is that snowbank over here. This bit pile up around here. Anything else ice and snow related is gone. Try to keep the angle up. An idea of some of the cuts here. This didn't get cleared for still pretty greasy. Almost a week later. Much easier. Jesus, like nothing at all. There's a snowblower in by here. So some of that's accumulation, some of that's been thrown up by the plow, and some of that's been blown there by the, what's we call it, the blower itself. Pattern is to get in the road on the incoming side, like oncoming side. That's not so bad to do it. So the lens will be looking lovely tonight, but the chance of salt spray is also higher. Pretty high in this one. Slow. Yeah, lotto numbers around steady tonight. Automatically updated. Tonight's estimate is 16-12. Oy. Hand holding the camera, not the greatest idea. In this case, we'd be better off worn as a body cam. But yeah, you get a good idea here too. So the snowblower had gone up past here. It was over a foot in that like a 12-hour period. And that would have been a small, fairly normal seasonal amount for us. As I say, I'm gonna watch the foot in here. We get about 3 times that amount and we'll start getting worried. Pretty fucking hard, right? There's a spot. Because there's nowhere to put it. there's just too much snow in the little small streets and stuff, then it starts to cause a lot of trouble. Sit down here and make a meal of a cold plate as soon as this traffic passes. Not this one coming. This guy. Which way are you going, dude? Take this time. I bet you this guy ain't going much faster than what the traffic was the night before either. Yeah, I ran across that last night. Crap still left in the middle. Slush. Salt slush. No alcohol content. Period. The wonder there's no fireworks going on tonight either. Might have been more than one person lost their lunch on the way up over the hill last night. Going down, maybe not so much. Coming back, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Cars spinning out. So all of this snow we got a week and a half ago, it's gone today. No biggie. Great Northern Peninsula. Is this. But when we look at that in the terrain map, this is a continuation of the Appalachian Mountain Range. Picks up from here, but also continues up this way a bit. And that's the Northern Peninsula in a nutshell. It's all very high elevation with a mountain range through this part and through this part. So they're the first to catch. If there's a flow of air in this direction, or a flow from the Gulf Stream, flow of currents and stuff coming that way, it kind of catches the cold air and keeps it behind that barrier. So this all starts freezing up. There's a big ski hill right here. It's really right here. And there's some of these mountains, they keep their snow all summer long. Not many. It's in the shade. It's not at the very top. It's on the right side of the mountain. Since it was once part of the U.S. mainland, yeah, you could say that. But it was also once part of their geological foundation, or geological formations here on this part of the island that match up with Wales as well. So if you want to go that way, just because it's closer. But yeah, there's New Brunswick and Nova Scotia in between, don't forget. My last video that I released and uploaded had a nice shot of these islands too. Pretty much all sand. It's just sandbanks. And there's another thing down here. It's called the Wreck House. I think it's right here. It's a natural wind tunnel formed it's like a pass through the mountains. So it used to be that trains that went through there had to stop at certain, if the wind was too high, the trains would stop rather than getting blown off the tracks. Narrow gauge is why. There were parts of Maine that are very much like here. We take Nova and a half to sack you guys. Good luck. Ours is a little bit bigger than their province, if you might notice. Plus, we got that too. Follow the mountain range, and you see what else belongs to it. This was called Markland. Labrador is thought to be Markland, named by Leif Erikson. And then there's, I should do a video about this sooner or later. There's a Viking settlement archaeological site up here called Lance Meadows. Excuse me one moment. Oh, that's Pistolet Bay, never mind. It's a National World Historic Site. Getting a cup of tea. Kettle finally got there. So there is an archaeological dig site in this area. Let me see if I can find it. Mainbrook. Best thing to do is to type the name in on this, so it's Lance Meadows is right there. And they have successfully unearthed what seems to be a lawn house there, as well as things which were made from local iron, which the natives definitely did not know how to do. However, I would like to do a video on that sometime. It's an interesting argument, because I know a great many people believe the Vikings went all the way down further than this. And that's the reason why Vinland probably isn't Newfoundland. For example, if I went to Maine, the blueberries are so much bigger, I could surprise myself. I could think that they were grapes, not blueberries. But something which tells me that there very likely was Vikings here. If not Vikings, then bird species that Vikings would follow. The area that this is in is surrounded by what's called, we call them, I'm going to put down what we call them. The area there is surrounded by bake apples, type of berry that grows in northern bogs, marshes around the world. Very popular among northern Europeans too, source of vitamin C. And the berries, when you eat them, the seeds pass through your digestive tract and you crap them out. So if a Viking shits in your bog, you'll get those berries. Which is an interesting story to think about. Bake apples are found all over the island. Anywhere there's a bog. Also known as cloudberry, I believe, among other things. But as I say, because it's a source of vitamin C, the seafarers brought them with them. Goodness knows how they made them last. We convert them to jam here. They make a liqueur out of it too, I think. Sweden or Norway has a cloudberry liqueur, which which I don't know how much they sell of that worldwide. And of course, the Vikings didn't stay when they came here. They disappeared just as quickly as they found it. In order to get there, though, this is a long road. This is a hell of a long trip. Something like a 5-hour trip up this peninsula alone. You can see the road there. And it's, as you can see, it's not at the top part of the geography. It's part way up the hill, the whole way up the coast. So you're up and down a lot of hills, but you don't ever go to the top of the mountains around you. There's a ferry used to go from here over to here. From there. And Port-au-Choix also has historic sites not related to Vikings, but to ancient form or precursor cultures to the modern Inuit, Innu, and what became the Beothuk. They're called, Maritime Archaic. Hey, is that donair sandwich any good? I didn't try it, but I was thinking about making shawarma today too, you know. How to do I wonder if that wouldn't be any bit good. Ever had shawarma? The thought of game meat plus beets beets in my cupboard. Beets right here, homemade stuff, came from my aunt's garden back home. That'd be good with a, not only donair, but just the meat in general. And Jack, we was already invaded by you bastards. We already got invaded by you bastards. I don't know if you remember that. We got invaded big time in the Second World War by you guys. I don't know if you realize how many different American sites there are on the island here. Here's one of them. American Air Base, Stephenville. Very important in the Second World War. You can see the strip. This was an American Air Base, Harmon Field. Oh man, beets are what makes the shawarma good. It's a Harmon Field there. You don't realize you were here and gone, man. You were here and gone. Where we just were, up by Lansing Meadows, there's St. Anthony, another American Air Base. And there's another one, another big one. I was talking about it earlier today, actually. Down here, this is the big American installation. This one was huge. This one was the employer. It's right here. This one probably employed more than anybody else, I would think. See the airfield? Oh, this was all due to the arrangements between FDR and Churchill. what they call the Atlantic Conference. It occurred right here. The base which came from the Atlantic Conference resulted in these bases, yep. Naval Station Argentia, complete with an airport. This is also where the Nova Scotia ferry docks now. You can get a ferry from here all the way to Nova Scotia. So the Atlantic Conference took place out here in this bay. This is where they met Churchill and FDR. There's another one here in town. It's called Pleasantville. This is currently all low-income housing, pretty much, or high-density housing. It's on the north side of this lake. There's a golf course here. There's a Canadian Forces base here now, but the rest of this was called Pleasantville and was an American base. So the names of the roads reflected, hey, this is Roosevelt Avenue, Churchill Avenue, Roosevelt Avenue. And the U.S. built by agreement, by wartime agreement, a number of hospitals. Many still operating. Oh yeah, my food, man. I got grub there. Gotta prep this while I'm thinking. Two things at once, don't mind if I do. Yeah, we already got invaded. They just didn't bother to let us vote for it. I live actually pretty close to a hospital that they built, which is here in this part of town, and they used it as training, a partway training facility. So if you were, say, Hilljack, you had signed up or volunteered when you were almost finished your medical degree in 1941, you might have got sent to Newfoundland for a year to do your residency before going overseas. So you'd practice on people that weren't American, essentially. There's a naval base on this side of the harbor, this Canadian. And it's mostly Coast Guard now, not anything else. Everything else is all commercial. And the dockyard, this was owned by the Navy until after the war ended. So there's a huge dockyard in here. Probably see the boats from space. Yeah, you can too. Coast Guard there. Container ship. Service vessel for the rigs. Service vessel for the rigs. Same for those two. And that one. And that one. Only marina. That's as much marina space as we have in St. John's. And then the most easterly point in North America right here, called Cape Spear. There's a lighthouse and various other buildings. There's also a gun emplacements for World War II right here. See them? Shawarma is awesome. Shawarma is so totally worth trying. I guarantee you the best Middle Eastern food I've had in years is a shawarma. Lamb, kebab, shawarma. Oh, better than chicken. Lamb is greater than chicken. That's why I thought about it with the gyro, because generally they use lamb meat, don't they, for donaires and stuff? Or goat? Heat it, plate it, eat it. You have to pardon me here. I'm going to enjoy a meal which I prepared a little earlier. So if you can put up with me eating while talking on a stream. I'm not in the mood to work tonight. This is friggin' Christmas Eve, for God's sake. Don't need the headphones on either. See, I'm not listening to anything right now. But yeah, you can see the gun emplacements on this map. They're pretty big guns. They're I would have no idea what the millimeters are, but they got to be around. They must be 330 or close on to 400 millimeter guns. Oh man, I love lamb. Lamb is excellent. The next time I try making, I was going to try to make some shawarma, but they almost always use a meat that I don't have available. Just thought of something else too. Moose chili. That would be good with deer too, I bet. Don't grind the deer meat up. Have it chopped up into cubes or something and just stew it in with your chili. You could use another meat in the chili which got more fat in it, perhaps. Moose burger is huge. Trying to think if there's any other major bases. I think the rest were all Canadian. Canada got a bunch of bases here at the same moment in time as the States did. Canadians, though, they staffed mostly radar. It was mostly radar outposts. I'm being really, I'm only telling half the... Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, venison chili can't be beat. I didn't imagine. Do you add any fat to it? Trying to deal with food processor, right? So Botwood here. This town of Botwood has a nice sheltered bay, which is it's in the middle of. So there's a flying boat base used to be here, which is more American than Canadian. Like the Clipper used to land here. Look at that. You can see the PBY from fucking space. Excellent. From space. Deer Burgers thinks she uses breakfast sausage. Yes, exactly. That's all you would need too. A little bit of pork or fat. or pork or beef grounding with it. That'd be all. Just enough to keep you keep you alive. But then there's this other place. It's called Gander. Gander is incredibly great. Gander. Gander remains the most important site in Newfoundland for aviation and handles all important air traffic, or all Atlantic air traffic, not just important. Space Shuttle once landed at Gander, or had an opportunity to land at Gander, or maybe it was Concorde. If the Space Shuttle had to, it could abort to Gander. That's what it was. Because of this one runway. But Gander Lake was also used as an air boat base. So there's an aviation museum here, which goes down to where the airboats used to be. And then there's the Arrow disaster. Was it Arrow? The Gander aircraft crash. It was Arrow Air Flight 1285. DC-8 jetliner which crashed. This was released in 2005. Because it happened on Christmas Eve, I believe. They were on their way home, 12th December. Never mind, it was before Christmas. Flight was carrying U.S. troops from Cairo, Egypt to their home base in Fort Campbell, Kentucky via Cologne, West Germany, and then Gander. Flying home in December of '85. Highest death toll of any aviation accident in Canadian soil, and the second highest of any accident involving a DC-8. It crashed right off the end of this runway. Down here. There's a memorial down here. So Gander is probably the most important location in Newfoundland, although the population wouldn't tell you that. Population density wouldn't tell you that, I mean. So we survived the American invasion. I've met a few people that moved away. Married an American, brought their family all down to the States and lived there the rest of their lives. Not very common though. Invaders. Some of us anyhow. And I saw some statistics. I don't know where I had them too, if I still got them here in the house or not, but I think I do. The amount of employment the U.S. offered during the war years wasn't that great. Wasn't that big. It peaked at around the same time as all the bases were built or whatever needed constructing. But after that, there was only a certain number of jobs available for civilians anywhere. And the government of the day wasn't a Newfoundland provincial government. It was a commission of government from Britain. One of the requirements of having the bases here was that they would offer a certain amount of local employment. Here's one of the hydroelectric facilities is down here. So yeah, right here, there's a reservoir area where they generate their electricity through here, through these various watersheds. They had a big accident, I should say. They had a problem with the flow control though in the last number of years, and it resulted in a shitload of water coming down through the watershed and making its way this way through these two river systems. So there was a flood that came running out these two rivers. I've seen video evidence of that. I know people that were in these areas when the flood came through. So they had some kind of hydro generation system down here, which controls the flow through here. St. John's is powered. A place called Seal Cove. I bet you we can see it from Google here. I'm sure I'm zooming in on it. Conception Bay South. I guess we could see why they don't want to put it on here. There's where Seal Cove is, this actual town. I think that's the electrical generation plant and the diesel storage, the Bunker C storage. So most of the power for the region comes out of here. Most of the electrical power. And it's supplemented by an overland linkage from Bay to Spear. There's a, how to describe it, there's a power line which is cut this way. Directly from here to there. So sometimes we lose power because the Bay to Spear line goes down. The rest of the time it's because of Holyrood. Seal Cove. I've heard rumors the bones of Jesus Christ are buried in Holyrood, or on the hills on the outside of, on the outskirts of. Somewhere out here, you'll find the bones of Jesus, apparently. Believe it if you want to. I don't know if it brings them any more tourist dollars. I doubt them. I doubt it. I say invaders for total badness. There was not an invasion. They had to have some local bases in the North Atlantic. So there was a lot of, say, Navy ships coming in out of St. John's Harbor, but they were spending the majority of their time in the big base. France is right here, and Vichy France at that. i.e. collaborating France. Imagine when France fell. That's part of the reason why Roosevelt took the hard line that he did. Via the Monroe Doctrine. And all distances measured from it. Like we're pretty much, you got to kind of hit it no matter which direction you come from. Where you don't is if you want to go the short route to the Caribbean, you go that way. And then you follow the trade route back. And then you've got a choice of going here just as fast as you can get there. If you do, you can come down that way faster than going straight through there. Important place to be, I think. There's a smaller national park right here, which is nice. Has nothing to do with the wars whatsoever. But it's kept separate and it's a protected area. No moose hunting in this region. Tons of moose, tons of them. More than we'd ever be able to do anything with. And then just a little bit south of that, there's this island. No moose hunting allowed on this particular island either. So it acts as a sanctuary. And moose can swim. So there's a heavy population on this island. As soon as they get in this region though, bang. One of the biggest drug busts in recent local history happened here. The one underneath is Ivanhoe. So what was happening was that a container ship, rather than coming on down into the sound here and docking at one of the local ports, Clarenville would have been the place to go. It stopped at Ireland's Eye, delivered the dope, and went on again. Got caught. Got spotted. Trying to think what else is worth talking about here. All these islands were populated in the 50s and 60s and then resettled. So they're used now as a vacation spot sometimes, but not often. They're all named, but there's no longer anybody living there. I don't want to see traffic map, man. Gee whiz. Turn off terrain, would you please? Thank you. I wonder why they've got this marked green like this. It's a provincial park here, provincial park here, provincial area here, provincial here, ecological reserve, the base area. So these will be zero hunting. One of the few areas that have no hunting permits issued for them. As I say, Terra Nova is another. Random Island is actually another. All this area open for hunting. Lots of tour outfits which will fly by a not flying boat, but a pontoon plane into there, bush plane. So in interior you can get moose, caribou down here, move along this coast. Moose, black bear, that's probably the two big ones. Huge lakes. Yeah, the name doesn't get bigger. I'll have to type that one out. Apparently red ochre as there's a mining town in here in Buckins. And any other thing that approaches a company town would be up here in Labrador. A lot of company towns up here. Mostly not here, but on the interior. Happy Valley, Goose Bay, Churchill Falls, and Labrador City. Oh, where's that? That's in Quebec. Gee, that looks an awful lot like something hit that area, doesn't it? Lab City's here. Labrador City. Big province, man. Big province. Why do he want to take his time there, I wonder? I'll be careful with this one. Rhymes with Gato face. This one here. Mud Lake is one of the areas that they do the low level flying over. I don't think we have any dew line facilities here. I'm not aware of any dew line facilities here. Just think about that. Yeah, Nain's only here. This is getting close to the Arctic Circle, though, by the time you get this far north. McCall Island. Considered north, yeah, Nunavut. 60 degrees north. Just got a message here I gotta respond to. Mm-mm. Damn, they took those pictures in the middle of the winter. Holy shit. Frozen up, everything frozen up. No boats being used that time of year. Skidoos to get across that. I didn't spend much time in Labrador, but I loved it there. Really, really liked it there. Oh yeah, boonies, beyond boonies. Population measured in hundreds, not thousands. But it's 60 degrees north, it's no wonder. Good news is it's nowhere to get to Greenland, right? It's just right across there. We get a lot of Greenland fishery action, even as far south as this. All the banks that they fish, that we fish, are right here. So we fish some of the same areas, right? And this is what we call the Grand Banks. Nose and tail of the Grand Banks. and the oil exploration region. It is really, really isolated in parts of Labrador. I like it though. It's the good kind of isolation. It might be the boonies, but it's a good boonies. Rather be in the boonies than on the wrong side of the tracks. How about that? That's exactly what it was like too. Take your choice, wrong side of the tracks or the boonies where you can do whatever you like. Pretty much. Within reason. Prior to World War I, Newfoundland had a better relationship with the United States than Canada did, I think. And after World War I was over and done with, and the government was saddled with all of this war debt, it caused the crash of what was a Dominion government. We were a separate colony to Canada. So we had our own parliament. In the British Commonwealth system, we were an equal to Canada. So we had trading arrangements with the United States which skipped Canada and which caused all the fuss. And not only that, but we were right next to St. Pierre and Miquelon, which is French territory, which makes this an international corridor in this region here. And as I say, the Second World War caused a huge stink because France. Ooh, big old hickory. I bet that smells good. There's only one thing I'm missing here tonight. If I had a wood stove, that would be nice. It's not the only thing I'm missing. Here's what I'm thinking about. A wood stove plus dried capelin. Very, very salty dried capelin. Are the most important forage species in Northwest Atlantic, providing a vital link in the food chain between plankton and larger animals. In appearance, they're small, silvery fish and a close relative of the freshwater smelt. Oh, and they're good and tasty too. Smelt being salmon, young salmon. Capelin are cold water, pelagic, schooling species inhabiting the Arctic and subarctic regions. Spend the bulk of their lives offshore, moving inshore only to spawn. Newfoundlanders call this the capelin skull, and on evenings in June, July, they will find adults and children down at the beaches equipped with buckets and dip nets to gather up this ocean bounty. We'll save them by drying them. Dried salted capelin are a traditional Newfoundland snack roasted over an open fire or on a hot wood stove. Plus beer. Oh. Capelin is a commercial fishery provides females with roe to the Japanese market. Many Newfoundlanders believe this is very dangerous and wasteful fishery. That all looked pretty good there. Am I picking up viewers? Am I picking up viewers here? Holy shit. I ain't even doing anything. I ain't even doing anything. I'm just sitting here. I tell you what I do have though. I don't have a Christmas picture, but I can at least open another box. This is the last one. This is the one I don't have any idea about. It says from Mom and Dad. I'm only going to tell you this is my stepfather. My actual father had glasses, which we opened last night. I should show those off again tonight though. So I'm unboxing something. I can imagine what it is. It's probably a puzzle or game of some kind. And I'm right. A number puzzle. Oh. This is the best part of Christmas Eve. Brain teaser, wood number puzzle. What's the idea here? Arrange pegs so that every line adds up to 15. Oh, I can dig that. Surely shouldn't be that hard. 16 that way, 3 is 14, 15, 10 is 11. 6 that way. Oh, wow, that's no good. I'll have fun with that later. Rhymes with Gato face. Laughing at my own chats. I actually got a good mind to try to fix and play this one here tonight, but we'll save that for tomorrow. Oh, what time is it anyhow? Maybe I'll stick on a little bit of music before I get back to the actual working. I also have a bunch of things to consider on Cy Borgeson's channel, which none mentioned to me there yesterday. He's perfectly correct in saying so. Namely, that there is a bunch of things that have been identified on. Oh wow, I'm missing something I like streaming myself. I like watching. Cy or Nunman was telling me that there's a bunch of videos with time-coded indexes provided, which makes things real easy. So I should probably get into looking at some of those before the night is over. Before I do, here you go. Little Irish flavored material.
So before I got there, I went over my long list of
recorded
songs that I haven't played in
17th.
at least a year. And this is high on the list. This one is high on the list, so it's getting in tune. But I'm not doing too much Who tonight. High on the list, but I was thinking perhaps I could do it differently than normal too. I'm not quite sure if it's possible. But for I've been a wild rover, and many's the year, and I spent all my money on whiskey and beer, and now I'm returning with golden great store. Not never gonna play that wild rover no more, and this no, maybe never, isn't right up your kilt, no, they never no more. Well, I play the wild rover, no, never. To an alehouse where I used to frequent, and I told the landlady that my money was spent. When I asked her for credit, she answers me nay. For a custom like yours I can find any day, and it's no, nay, never, in a right up your kilt, no, they never, no more. Well, I play the wild rover, no, never, no more. into my pocket and I take out Sovereign Sprite. Watch them landlady's eyes open wide with delight. She says we got whiskeys, we got wines of the best. And the words that I spoke, sir, they was only in jest. And it's a no, they never right up your kilt. No, they never no more. Well, I played a wild rover. No, never no more. So I'll go back to my parents and confess what I done. Then I'll ask them to pardon this prodigal son. And should they caress me as oft times before, I'll not never go and play that wild rover no more. And it's no, nay, never, and right up your kilt. No, they never no more. Well, you play the wild rover. No, never no more. And I say, no, they never. Right up your kilt. No, they never no more. Well, I play the wild rover. No, never no more. Ah, that took you strange there. Thank you, thank you. I got penicillin shot earlier, boys. You don't have to worry about the clap. All right. I don't got to worry about the clap. Next one's called 30-Foot Trailer. This is by Ewan McConnell. He's from Ireland. He was from Ireland, I should say.
Should have done Brown Eyed Girl. That would have been a better one. Speaking of Irish music. So, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm watching YouTube very, very carefully tonight. This is what I've been watching for. No, not my own channel. Hard News Network is live as of a half hour ago, a little bit over. I'm going to switch over to the Hard News Network stream for a while, which means I'm going to stop streaming. When I stop, I'll be able to get my voice recorder back. So I'll be able to do the work that I got to get done while watching the stream, and then I'll come back and do the work later. I.e. probably after the turn of the day. So, if you've been joining me for this special Does Nothing on Christmas Eve edition, my name's James PFP. This is the Banjocast. Pitchforks, flaming torches. I'm armed, armed with a banjo and ready to use it, not afraid. But I'll be catching a little bit of news before I do anything else tonight. Check it out. Check it out. Be good, man. See you later, Helljack. Is it made in China? What, Caitlin? No. So yeah, thanks for watching. I will be back in, say, 2.5, maybe 3 hours, and I will be resuming the project which I've been working on the last couple days then. Thanks for watching.